Hi,
This meeting
Rachel.
is being recorded.
Hi, Ina, how are you?
I'm good. How are you going?
I'm good. Did you have a good day?
I did. I did.
Excellent.
I can't remember where I got to now. I had a couple of things. I had a couple of Zoom calls in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and then had take my dog to the vet.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are they okay?
James unfortunately got an incident at the groomer last,
Oh,
and he had to get all stitched up.
yeah.
It was that bad?
That doesn't sound good, no.
No, they cut his skin. It was like
And
the
I'll
whole,
go how to get my camera on for you
the
since I'm the
whole
only one
flap.
here.
That's all right. The whole flap it cut off his skin, and
Oh no.
yeah, and so he had to get stitches.
Shit.
Um,
That's pretty
it
bad.
yeah, it is pretty bad. It was
Mm-hmm.
now looking for a new groomer.
Yeah, fair enough.
Uh, but he seems to be okay. He's just wearing his little cone.
No.
Not a cone because I got a soft one. See if I can find a photo.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a little donut.
Little donut, flower, pumpkin. And, he's doing better, but yeah, it was a bit of a big deep cut, not a little
Yeah.
nick like this. So it was a little nick. It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So
Have you been using that groomer for a while?
yeah,
Okay.
well, a couple of years. So,
Yeah.
but you'd think. So now,
One strike and you're out with Ina.
yeah, well, I think it's just the fact they how they handle it.
hmm
Um, she's
Yeah, that makes a
like,
big difference, doesn't it?
yeah, she's like, you still charge me, and then
Mm.
she's like, oh no, he should be fine to go home. They'll separate.
Yeah.
And
Stitches doesn't really sound like it was
I was
fine.
like, I don't think this is going to scap over in a few days.
Yeah.
So I
hmm
took him straight to the vet and I said, I'm taking him to the vet, so
hmm
they'll be in touch if
Yeah.
because I'm not paying for it.
Yeah.
And it turns out, yeah, definitely, it's like, yeah, this is not going to scab over in a few days. You have to get
hmm
antibiotics, have to get stitches, and yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how are you going in your sort of starting your business stage?
Good. Things are mostly ready to go. I just need to add a few more bits to the website and then figure out marketing.
That's awesome.
So yeah, learning all the things that I didn't have to do at my last job.
That's good. Did you, because your last job, your studio, did do the session fee and then you sell prints and wall art.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're going to do the same business model?
Yeah, mostly the same, but try to be a lot more transparent than they were.
Yes. Awesome.
hmm
That's exciting. Well, we should chat more later.
Oh, you cut out for a second there. Can you
Oh,
repeat that?
We should chat more later.
Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I'm curious who your business coach is.
Yeah. Well, I'm my business coach for when I first started,
Mm-hmm.
Alex Kearns.
Okay, cool. What
But
state is she in?
WA.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Are you on Instagram? Are you following me on Instagram?
Maybe just Facebook, but I'll go and follow you on Instagram
Yeah,
now.
send me a message.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
All right.
resources. Hi, Diane. Good to see you. I'm just gonna wait for one more person to join in. Otherwise, we'll start in a minute.
I just followed you now, so you should see my profile
Perfect.
next time you log in.
I'm gonna record this one here. All right. So,
I
just gonna share my
turn
screen.
myself off so I can eat my dinner.
Sounds good. All right. I'm just gonna get started in 1 minute. Hopefully, Sarah is joining us. See if I've got any messages. Probably not. All right. Well, let's just get started and hopefully she joins in later. So welcome to the series 2 of the editing webinar. The first webinar that we did last week and the week before covered all the adjustments in Lightroom, editing in Lightroom, which is where I start my workflow. This workshop will now cover the second part of it, which is Photoshop. So if you are interested in sort of what happens before this stage, I'll probably do a couple of other webinars for the Lightroom editing. So I'll go through that. So today we're going to talk to a bit about the introduction, why I use Photoshop, my workflow, the key Photoshop techniques that I use, and then we're going to spend the rest of the time demonstrating Photoshop, because I think that's the best way to learn, is showing you how it all works rather than just showing you theories and things like that. First of all, I think both of you know who I am here. I know Diane knows me. But I'll just do a quick introduction. I am Ina and I run my business, Ina Photography. I am a full-time pet photographer. I do mostly outdoor dog photography, but I do have I do photograph other pets as well. And I'm a Sony digital imaging advocate, workshops and webinars on Sony Scene platform and for Sony as well, in person and both online. And I'm a dog mom to 3 Havanese, as you can see here in the photo. I've got on the bottom photo, you've got Rosie, Pippa, and James from the left to right. So they're my little dog models who help me model. They're good in the studio, but not that great outside. So that was a very rare occasion where I got some nice photos of all 3 of them together. So I'm going to get straight into it. Why do I use Photoshop? So Photoshop is much more powerful than Lightroom. It's got a lot of more tools for image manipulation, creation, and enhancement. You can use Photoshop to remove objects, combine and merge photos, and there's more advanced editing and manipulation that you can do to make the photo to reflect your style, or to really be creative with your photo. Lightroom is a great software to sort of do your basic adjustments, your tones, exposure, color. There's some masking tools that are good there too. However, I think Photoshop still has more tools that you can really use to remove leashes. The remove tool in Lightroom it's getting better, but there are times where it doesn't work as well. So that's where Photoshop comes in, especially with dogs, because I photograph them outdoors. Most of the locations that I use require dogs to be on lead. I would always need, or most of the time, I would need to remove the leash off the dogs, or the owner would be standing right next to the dog, and I would need to remove that too. So that's the reason why I use Photoshop. I'll go through my workflow, how I do my editing for my clients. So after a shoot, I usually go and import the photos into Lightroom, and then I do culling and select around between 30 to 60 photos for my client to show them at their ordering appointment, where they come in and select their favorite images. For those photos, I do then basic edits and adjustment in Lightroom, and I use Imagine AI to do that. That has really made my workflow really much faster than before. It's a great tool. I covered that in the last webinar. It's basically an AI editing tool, and I've built it on my style because I've loaded at least 7,000 of my edited photos so that you can learn my style. And most of the time, I don't have to change it much or change it at all. Otherwise, I do some minor tweaking. I do then do a couple of full edits for my clients, so that's where I go Photoshop for advanced edits. So I'll remove the distractions. So if the owner's partly in the photo and they're not meant to be in the photo, we take photos with the owners. But sometimes if we're just doing the portraits of the dogs, but the dogs, has to be close to the owner, I'd have to remove either their legs or part of the body or the whole person. And then also enhance specific elements of the image. And then lastly, I do the final adjustments to reflect my unique style. And that's different for everyone. So it's, to find your style, it took a while for me to find my style. You'll, I guess, learn by practicing, by, trying out things that you like, and then you work out things that you don't like, and work out what sort of styles you like. If you see my photos tend to be quite warm and vibrant. That's where I like it. I'm not a dark and moody type of photo, so you can probably see it quite consistent. And it's good. So once you figure out your style, it's good to be consistent so that when people look at your social media, if you are running a pet photography business, that they can tell that it's you. Also, if you've got any questions throughout, please feel free to unmute. If I'm not clear or anything's wrong, please just yell out and unmute. So yeah, the key techniques that I use in Photoshop. So as I mentioned, I use leash removal. So using the tools like clone stamp, remove tool, patch tool, content aware fill, and generative AI with caution. Those are the 5 different tools that I tend to use. Generative AI, if I'm putting something big, I do need to a bit more cautious with it because the quality sometimes might not be as good. But it has been doing better lately in terms of like the result that you get from it. And then person removal, it's removing any unwanted people. So as you can see in the photo here, we've got the owner, the dog handler standing right next to the dog. So in the final image, I remove the legs and the leashes. Distraction removal, any distracting elements that takes away from the photo, because we want to make sure it's focused on the pets. Using similar tools like I mentioned above, like the remove tool, patch tool, clone stamp. Any layer adjustments, you can use layer adjustments and layer mask to adjust the tones, hue, saturation, contrast, and colors, and using the masking as well. And then merging and composite. So where you've got multiple dogs, sometimes there's a bit of head swap or body swap that's required, where I have to combine multiple photos and create one image. So using the layer masking and layer blending, you can create some nice seamless composites. Some time-saving techniques that I would recommend as you start getting familiar with Photoshop is creating actions. So record common editing steps using actions. It's kind of like a preset. That way you get to automate repetitive tasks and save your time. Use keyboard shortcut. I'm all about my shortcuts. So I do use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, and I also use a Wacom tablet for editing. So I've got my shortcuts on the keys on the left here mapped out. So I tend to use that when I'm editing, and then develop presets, which is like in Lightroom. So those are some techniques you can apply to help save time and make your workflow more efficient. All right, so these are some of the keyboard shortcuts. You can screenshot this or save for later. These are the ones I use a lot of. S, clone stamp, brush tool, remove tool, creating new layers, and brush sizes. There's a lot of other ones, but these are the usual ones that I use a lot. So let's get to the actual editing demonstration. So I'm going to stop sharing here and change my screen. Let's do this. Awesome. So I'm going to go to Lightroom. I've selected some images here that I thought might be good candidates for removals and just editing it to remove style. This one here, this dog does have a harness, but because he was fluffy, we can easily remove it. So see which one would be best. I think let's go with this one here. So I've done the Lightroom editing already in this photo. So if you look at the straight out of camera shot, I've made it a bit warmer, done some adjustments in terms of the white balance, color, lighting. I might actually just do a tad brightness here and masking just a little bit before I take it into Photoshop, bring up the shadows there. And what I'm going to do is right click, edit in Photoshop, and that's going to take it to Photoshop. So I've got my Wacom pen and tablet. With the removing the leash, there's different options that you can use, as I mentioned. Usually, I usually try to remove leash. I have found out that now you can actually go click find distraction, wires and cables. Sometimes remove the leash. Sometimes. So I do try that out. That's how I do find that it does take a little bit of time to kind of work out, and then you don't know whether it works or not. So that's one of the ways to do it. Let's see what it does here. No. So that's actually done a pretty good job of removing the leash in one click. So if I go undo, so you can still see a little bit of weird markings there. If it doesn't do a good job, then you can try some of the other methods. The other one is using the remove tool, which is probably it's the same as what it's done there. So sometimes you probably just get the same result, except you're actually selecting the part that you want to remove. So let's just test it out, and I'm going to remove this little bit of the D-ring that's sticking up. Sometimes I also remove the collars, but I ask the owner if they want it to be left there or left in or taken out. In this case, the owner asked for it to be left in, so I would leave that in there. So that remove tool did a better job than it did with the other distractions, and that's like really good and pretty seamless. So that's not too bad. If you find that doesn't work as well, you can try. I'm just going to do a little snapshot. You can try the clone snap. With the clone snap, it is a bit of a manual process and it may take longer. Basically, what it does is you select the source by clicking Option or Alt key, where you can see that cursor changes to a target icon, and then you just then kind of brush it along, and it will copy it from the source. However, with the different backgrounds, it can get quite complicated, so that's why I recommend trying the other tools before you go on the clone snap. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just picking it from different layers, so I'm not creating too many patterns. It's the same, but I'm trying to kind of recreate back what the leash is covering. So I'm just changing the brush size at times. So the process does take a bit more time. So you can see it's pretty much similar, but just a different way. So if I go to, that was with the remove tool, and that's with the clone snap. So it's a little bit jagged there because I was doing it really quickly. So I find the remove tool work quite nicely. And then you can also try the patch tool. That sometimes works quite well, but you do need to kind of do it one at a time. So it works better when you don't have as much of a pattern. So you can cut out like that. So you might have to feather it, play around with all the different tools, but I would go with the remove tool to start with, and then you can tidy up using clone snap. The other option is doing a selection using the lasso and doing a generative fill. But as I said, sometimes the quality isn't great, and that also takes a little bit of time for it to think. So I don't actually write anything in here when I do the generative AI, unless I intentionally want to add something in there. So those are the really basic leash removal tools. This one's a pretty simple photo, so it's quite easy, but it could be some that are a bit more challenging. So here, as you can see, the generative AI has a little bit funny things where it's added an end of the collar, which kind of looks a bit funny. So you might want to just fix that. So I actually like the results of the remove tool that we did before. So I'm going to leave it at that. And then I'm going to look at anything else that requires any removal, like for distraction. So for example, let's just use the remove tool, this little white spot here, I'm going to remove that. A little bit of the patch here and the rock. There's this thing above her head as well, the agapanthus leaf, and building that kind of sticks out because it's grey. So I'm going to do some masking so that it doesn't affect the dog and make it easier for me to remove. So I'm just going to remove the ones on the front here, just bits and pieces, and use the remove tool. That's very good. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate the layer by pressing Command J. So I'll have 2 layers, and I'm going to select subject to select the dog and use a layer mask. So I don't know if you can see what I did there. So that to select subject, selected the dogs. It's actually done in pre-selection. You can refine it if you want to refine it more. You can do the select and click select the mask. But I find that the subject selection has done pretty well. So I'll leave it as it is. Now, while you've got that selected, go to the layer mask icon here and press Option, and that's going to mask it. And any changes that I make on the background on this layer here won't affect the dog. So say if I click the clone snap, hit Option and try to go over the dog, it's not going to change it. So now I can kind of work in the background here, and just I'm going to get rid of this strip that's sort of coming out of the dog. There's some kind of light there, so I'm going to use part of the background to add a lower flow. To just gonna, oops, I've got to make sure I select the right part. So that's just a bit nicer without being too distracting. And I'm gonna go in and zoom and remove that part just above the head. So copy that part from there. And then I'm just gonna go and use the selection brush tool and just see whether it's gonna help me remove this grey building using generative AI. Generative fill. Let's see whether that works well there. Please shout out if you've got any questions, or if I'm moving too fast or too slow, or yeah, anything, any feedback. So I'm just looking at the options. That doesn't look too bad. We'll choose that first one. Just make sure that it shapes the body. So I'm just going to get the layer mask and get a white brush or black brush and just bring back some of the dog here. Okay, that looks better. Perfect. And then I'm just going to fix that bit here. Oh, what is it doing? I'm going to merge this. Then got to be really careful with these sticks sticking out. So just getting rid of that dark. All right, and also you don't have to be perfect. Sometimes I get a bit too stuck in making it perfect, but that looks good. So we've gone from that to that to that. Now the remove tool did something weird here, so I'm just gonna use the clone stamp to fix that. Awesome. So, and then once you're happy with removing all distractions, then that's where I go to then start editing and working out what I want from there. As I mentioned before, I do use actions. I've recorded some actions where I've done some adjustments. So with the quick base workflow, the action that runs it, basically when it runs it, it runs a few layers. So as you can see, when I press the action, it creates several layers. And sometimes I turn some off depending on the image. If the photo is already quite sharp, I don't add too much sharpening. Evenly, it's just getting a bit more of the shadows. So it's a very, very minimal effect because I do have the layers done at 20%. Add a little bit more contrast, a bit more color, so just the saturation, and I usually go in and adjust it so that I can adjust it the way I like it, because this is just a setting that I use on one image, so I can adjust the opacity as well. So I'm going to leave that opacity at about 30% and probably saturation at about 4 or 5. So just add a bit more color. Lighten is just levels, bring up the white and bring up the blacks. So just brighten it a bit. Sometimes I add darken, but I'm going to enable that layer. And then image pop, it's just a gradient. And let me see if I can make this what it looks like. Normal, 100%. It's just basically a gradient with a black outer and a white. And then I would change it to a soft light blend mode and lower it down to about 20%. And it's just going to create kind of like a little vignette and then make that center image pop. So I usually just adjust the intensity, opacity to about 15 to 20%. Just bring that up. And oops, that's that one normal, and then this one soft light. There you go. Oops. You can see just a tad. And then raw essentials again, it's another levels, and I've also done the masking here to mask out the highlight so it's not too bright. And if I want to add extra warmth, I also add a color, solid color, and change that to multiply blend mode. So this is just some of the things that I do and what I like to enhance my photo. So before, after, and then I can just adjust the opacity, and that brings up the shadows up a bit. So bring that down a bit more. All right, and then I usually take a snapshot and flatten so I can then go back again later. And then I run my pet portrait actions, which then does similar things, and I'll go through it. Adds a little bit of a gradient layer, and I'm going to drag that there. All right, so I've created here is a black and white layer. I'm adding back a bit more of that contrast and darkness at a soft light and a very, very low opacity. I've got an action which I bought, which is like a warmer scene. If the actual photo isn't warm enough for me, but it's not too bad. I do like a bit warmer. That's just my preference, so I usually make it a lower opacity. I do like really, really warm photos. It's not everyone's style, obviously, but I love it. So, and that's my style, and my clients love it as well. So, and then the next layer is another gradient fill layer. So with this one here, I'm going to change to normal blend mode so you can actually see what the gradient is like. Usually I would go and change the scale, and I'll change the color to, because it's already quite warm, a bit more kind of cooler yellow, but a bit more white. And okay, and I'm just gonna move the gradient. If I double click on it, I can move where this gradient is. So kind of adds a little spotlight again. I'm just gonna change the scale. Go okay, change it back to soft light. And then I usually leave that at about 20 to 30%. So again, just adds a bit more of that. But I've also masked it. So as you can see here, that's not going to go over the subject this time. It's just adding background. Whereas the one that I did before in the quick base goes over the subject to bring out that shadows. And then I've also got another gradient layer, which again, I usually go in and adjust. This time I'll make it opacity 100 so you can see where. So it's kind of like adding a bit of a array. So I need to have a look where the light is actually, so you can see there's already some natural light there. I just want to enhance it more. So I'm going to double click on that layer, and I'm also going to go in there and just pick a color from sort of similar, not too dark, a bit brighter. Go okay, okay. And I usually have, somehow it doesn't let me move after I choose color, so I have to go back okay and bring it up again. I'm just going to bring it up here, and then I can change the angle. So I'm going to kind of bring it down this way and then change the scale so I can make it like extra super big or just a subtle. So let's go with that first, and then I'm going to leave it at the normal opacity and just lower the opacity to say 46 or 30%, maybe a bit lower. Just adds a bit more color. You can also play around with the blending mode, so I'm just going to duplicate that and make that a bit more higher opacity. You can see the screen, it's kind of a bit more brighter light, so you probably want to, if you're going to add several layers, you can do that. Sometimes I play around with it, so it really depends on your style. You can leave it without it for sure as well if you just want natural. I just like a bit of that ethereal light coming from the top. So I usually add a little bit depending on what the photo is like. I also make sure I look at the histogram to make sure that it all is looking okay. There's no bright highlights that's being clipped. So now that I've done that, I'm going to merge all of these together. And I'm just going to take another snapshot. And now I'm going to go into the levels and curve and just make another adjustments to see. This one I can still bring up the whites a bit more. So as you can see in the histogram here, this is the whites on the right, the left is the blacks. If there's a big kind of what do you call it? Spike on the right here, it means that the highlights are clipped, and that there's not enough details in the highlights. it looks pretty even because you've got a bell curve here. If it's too bright, the photos are going to be more, the histogram's going to be leaning towards right. If it's too dark, the histogram is going to lean towards the left. So histograms are kind of good, judgment to see whether the photo is too bright or too dark. I might bring up the whites a bit more, and what I'm going to do is press the Option key while I bring that up. So it's gone black, but as I bring it up, you can see where the reds are. That means that those areas where the yellows are, those areas are losing details, and that it's too overexposed, so the highlights are clipped. So I'm not going to bring it up too much there, so I'll bring it back down to around here. And I'm just going to use the black brush with the layer mask. So black conceals and white reveals. So if I add a black brush, that's going to basically cover where those highlights are being clipped. So if I go back here, you can see it's no longer red until I move it again. So, and then if I'm pretty happy with the brightness. I can see that there's still a bit of a coolness around there, but I think that's okay. Sometimes there's color cast that I need to fix, but the color looks, I think, good on the dog. She was quite light brown. Like, she's a very old dog. She's 14, 15-year-old Kelpie, I think it was. She's blind and she's deaf as well. So this was a great photo to like get her attention because she couldn't hear me or see me that well. But yeah, so that's pretty much where I would finish, and then I'll take another snapshot so you can see from the original to the final photo. So there's some minor adjustments there, but other than that, that's, yeah, there wasn't too much in there. This is probably an easy one. There's some that it's a bit more challenging to remove. So for example, I'm just going to save this, save it as a JPEG. All right, so if we go back to Lightroom, for this one here, two dogs, and you've got one handler on the left and one handler on the right. Sometimes what I would do if I forgot to take a clean shot without the dogs, I would have a look at other photos to see whether I can find similar backgrounds where I can copy sort of the photos from. So that's why I've got these other two photos as well, and also I took them separately just in case I couldn't get them together, especially with two dogs, and because I shoot wide open, so f1.8 between f1.8 and f2.5. If these dogs weren't on the same focal plane, their eyes are not going to be both in focus. But as you can see here, you can see that it's slightly out of focus in the Great Dane here, because the nose is more in focus. But I think I can get away with that and work on the sharpening the eyes on this part. And this dog here has also a lot of eye boogers and a bit of slobber that I would also need to clean up in addition to, whereas the other dog wasn't as much. So before I go ahead, any questions from you, Rachel, Diane? Any comments, any feedback?
Can you repeat the keyboard shortcut you use when you are selecting the subject and putting a mask on the subject?
Yep, I can do that. Let's go. I'm gonna edit this one now. So the layer mask. So I select subject as,
yes.
Yeah. So that's just a slide. I have created an actual shortcut in here as an action. You can just do an action and create a shortcut. So sometimes I just create that. But when you've got that selected and then you hit Option while you click that layer mask, and then it's just gonna mask the subject.
Okay. So
that
it should be shift on PC.
option is Alt, I think.
Oh, okay.
Let me Google that. What's option on PC? Yeah, it's an Alt key. And then also say you've got another layer. I'm just going to create a different layer. You haven't got masking in here, but you want to copy that masking. Or if I say I want to add a radial gradient. Oops, not pattern. Radial gradient. Let's try again. Gradient. Radial. I'm just going to go OK. So I want to add that gradient. Now I don't want it to go over the subject, but I don't want it to select subject and mask again. I just select that mask that we had before. Hold the Alt or Option while you're dragging, and you can see that arrow has got like one black and one white arrow, and just drag and drop it, and that layer mask is also now on the gradient. So that's a great shortcut if you've kind of already selected the subject and you just want to use the same selection. So with this here, as you can see, I would have to do quite a bit to remove the person, but I have this photo here where it's the same background, but without too much of a person. So what I might do actually is bring it from this photo and just drag it in this photo here. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of align it. So I'll do that. Obviously there's still that part there that I didn't take a photo of, but that's the sky, so it's easier to mask rather than the trees. And then I'm gonna hit the option and masking. So now it's created a mask, but it's got all black mask. And I'm gonna grab a white brush to then reveal. And just so it's a little bit easier than just trying to. Obviously, I need to align it a bit better, so I'm going to kind of move it down a bit and just do it up until there, and I'll fix that bit later. And then I'm going to remove this part, so I'm very close to the edge. So in here, I'm just going to bring that back, and then I'm gonna create another layer. So I'm just make sure I mask that properly. So if I hit the backslash button, you can see the red, which is that just makes it easier where I brush it. So if I miss any spots, I can just go. I'm gonna leave that one as it is, and then what I'm gonna do is press Command Shift Alt Command Control Shift Alt E or Command Shift Option E, and that's just going to merge those two layers onto a new layer. And then I'm going to use the remove tool to just remove these bits here, this bit there, and hopefully that works. And then I'll fix the top part using clone stamp. That didn't do so well there, so let's give that another go. I'm just gonna not sample all layers. Let's try that again. So I said sometimes it doesn't do a good job. So sometimes I will try it I didn't do a good job. You can see, I don't know if you can see it, but it kind of leaves a bit of a marking there. So the remove tool didn't really do a good job there. So I'm just gonna bring back the history brush. Use the history brush. Where's the history brush? And go back before the remove tool and just bring back the initial that way. No, Rosie, sorry, Papa. Rosie's being naughty. All right, so I'm gonna use the tool for this top part here. Just bring. And using the Alt or Option just to copy that, and then bring this back from here. And let's see if I can use the remove tool in this last bit. So I use a bunch of different tools. Sometimes you gotta just play around and see what works. Oh, it's so annoying that didn't work again. Let's try it. Select and charity fill. It's mental at times, which is annoying because you want it to be consistent, but it's not consistent. So some photos take longer than others. Like the other one obviously took so much quicker to work on. That's a little bit better. So yeah, obviously as you can see, there's different techniques to remove. You can use other layers or other images. Usually I do try to take a clean shot of the background because that's going to make it so much easier. If you take a photo of the dog, focus on the dog, and then tell the owners to move out of the way, and then take a clean shot without refocusing, that is usually going to make your life so much more easier than using the clone stamp remove tool generative AI. But at times you forget to do that. So it's just a matter of yeah, getting the photo. So I think there's these ones here, which I've done, which you can use other photos as well. I don't know whether I've taken some without the dogs in it. Actually, I did. Yeah, this one here, because this dog was a blind dog. He was very challenging. So I took some blank shot of the background so I can use that to remove the person, because there are times like here where the whole person's in it and it would have been so complicated to remove them. So that's the case where taking a clean shot of the background really, really helps. Yes, other than that, yeah, the other step afterwards is pretty much the same, unless I want to do a bit more creativity. But for my clients, I generally follow the same workflow: remove leashes, remove distractions, remove the people, then run the quick base workflow, make the adjustments to the layers as I need, run the step 2 pet portrait workflow, and then run it as I need. With studio photos, I guess the only difference is, let's go to studio, is a bit more cleaning up the background. So this one I attempted to fix background using the remove tool in Lightroom, but as you can see, it's a bit of a weird patch. So let me reset that. So I have a very thin backdrop, which can be hard when you've got bigger dogs. So in Lightroom, obviously I'll try to do as much adjustment. I won't do anything much here, but if I go edit, Photoshop, And then I would use, so duplicate that layer. I would select this part here, and I would actually do content aware fill. And that green is where it's going to pick up the color or the clone from. Just going to remove the guinea pigs from that, and that background. Oops, where did that? And go apply. Okay. Sometimes it does an okay job, sometimes it doesn't. So you can see it's sort of done a bit weird, but I would just leave it there and then I can fix it later and then create it as a copy. And then I'll also do it on the other side. Or what you can do as well is go edit, fill, and then I'll just select foreground color. So I'm going to select the color first. So just pick a color that's really close to the background and go do that selection. It's very close to the fluffy guinea pig. So I'm just going to be a bit slow around here. And edit, fill, and use the foreground color that you picked before. What did it do this time? It does a weird thing. That should usually work, but it didn't work, so I don't know why. I'm going to edit, fill, normal, foreground color. I don't know why that didn't work. Or you can brush it on as well. So you can click brush and then you can blend. What I found, so you can see it actually blends quite alright until you get to this part where you need to be careful that you don't go over the ease too much. And then I'm going to use the brush and hit Option or Alt, and that's going to come up with the eyedropper. And just brush it. I think there are different ways of doing this. This is what I've done. And then what I do is in the brush tool, you can go to find a mixer brush. And then using a lower flow, just kind of blend the colors together. So it kind of smooths it out a bit. So that's just adding layers, and obviously there's a lot of cleanup here because the guinea pig sheds a lot, and yeah, there's a few things that I use for that. I'm just going to go select subject.
Question.
Yeah.
Are you able to tell me with the brush tool what the difference between opacity and flow?
Yes, opacity. So I'm just going to get a brush and I'm going to do like a really different color. So change it to normal brush. So opacity is how opaque it is. So that's going to be really, really opaque, whereas a low opacity, it's going to be light. But you can layer over it to build up. Flow is how much. Oh, that's not good. Undo the brush. So flow, it's just gonna, yeah, it is actually quite similar. Now I don't know.
I've never been able to figure it out.
Yeah, I think flow is so I think it's how much is applied in each brush stroke, whereas opacity is the transparency of it. So
Yeah. If you have
Yeah,
a hard brush, it's more visible with the
that's
flow.
right. That's right. So yeah, if you use, I think because I use a lot of the time I use a soft brush. So if I do a
Yeah.
hard brush, let me just delete that. Do another, oops, another layer. So if I do opacity 100, opacity, low opacity,
Yep.
and then if I do 100 opacity, low flow, you can see the flow. You can see how you can see it as I build up.
Okay. It's got a
Yeah,
bit of
whereas
like a jaggedness to it.
yeah, it's just it allows for gradual shading, and it also works when you've got a Wacom tablet, which is what I'm using.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got this here, which I think is called the pressure. So if I press harder, it's gonna go really
Mm-hmm.
like slow. But if I go really light, you can see it changes the opacity. Or if I do like
Okay.
really, but if I press it,
So
you
I
can.
guess if you went like backwards with a lower flow, it would build up, but the opacity it might not.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. So I tend to try and, sometimes I play around with both. But sometimes in terms of like clone up, sometimes I go with the lower flow and just build up.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you can, yeah, I usually change the flow to start with, especially when I'm actually doing some dodge and burning as well. So like if I do dodge and burn, I would go file new layer. So layer new layer. No, is it edit fill? That's what I need to do. Yes, sorry. If I go new layer, create a blank layer and go edit fill, and I do 50% gray, and usually I do a soft light and go OK. Oops. And then change to soft light here, and then using a black and white brush, so black to dodge, I probably like do really low opacity, 3%. So say if I want to kind of bring up more of the shadow so you can see. Can you see what I've done there with the dodge and burn? You build it up slowly. So that's the dodge. If you, sorry, burn. If you're dodging, you're going to use the white brush, and I'm using a low flow. Just enhance the highlight there. It's very low, but I've got to build up slowly. As you can you see a bit the difference? So that's with
Yeah.
the dodge and burn layer without. With the hair, I've been playing around with a couple of things. I'm just going to select the subject and isolate the subject. Okay, it's going to do a layer mask and go back to the actual layer. I did get what do you call it, a plugin called Retouch for Me Clean Backdrop, which sometimes works well, sometimes doesn't. You can see, you can select fine dirt, medium dirt, coarse dirt. So I'll usually just start with what it's doing. It takes a bit of time though. Sometimes it does an alright job, especially on the paper backdrops where it has a lot of hair in. So it kind of did okay. You can see that it's done a little bit of weird colors here, some weird highlighted colors. I just go apply, and then what I do then is just lower the opacity and kind of get rid of that, get rid of most of the hair. So that did not right job. And then I would then use the mixer brush tool and just, oops, I'm gonna merge that. And make sure that I'm not picking up any color, and just Yeah. Obviously, this won't work well on textured backdrop, but on colored backdrops, I'm just kind of blending colors. And oops, that one didn't work. And I can just use the remove tool to just fix the bits that are a bit difficult. But that's actually not too bad. It got rid of that dirt pretty much, and the hair, most of the hair. Probably just need to go in it a bit. But that's what I use. The other thing as well, I've actually bought an action. It was quite expensive. It's called, so many actions I bought. It is called Hello Little Props. So it's actually got background fillers and things like that, and background fix. So if I say delete all that layer, bring that back. Sometimes it doesn't do a good job when you still have like weird stuff in the background, but sometimes I go background with a gap or no gap. So let's just go this one, background fix, and see what it does. It will probably help clean a lot of this. So you can see it's just blurred that background. So what I would do before doing any of that is just again do that color fill. Use a brush just to, oops, that's low opacity. Just, I'm going to go very, very rough. Just going to pick up on the guinea pigs. Oops, what it's done now. Sorry, I'm just going to go back. My mouse has gone crazy. Zoom has a lot of windows, so it's stopping me from. So I'm just going to, oops, bring back a bit more of the guinea pig. All right, and then let's run that again. So background fix. So that cleaned it up as well. So instead of that plugin, you can also run that. So that's a job. And it's got a whole thing where you can actually, background filler, fill the right, fill the top. It's a good action if you don't want to figure it out yourself, or if you just want to click the buttons. But yeah, studio. I do a lot of studios, so I haven't done much actually in the last few months. But that's how I would do it if I would be doing studio. Because I know you're doing studio, Rachel. Is that right?
Yeah, I work strictly in a studio.
Yeah. Are you using a paper backdrop or a textured backdrop?
I've got a textured fabric backdrop at the moment.
Fabric. Okay. How are you finding editing that?
Yeah, not too bad. I need to explore. I'm gonna have a look at what a photo AI can do for backdrops. Mark said it can like get rid of some wrinkles. And I would like it if it could like blur it a little bit in a good way. Yeah, because depending on what I'm shooting, sometimes I'm really close and it blurs more, or sometimes I'm back further, it blurs less, or depending on like the color of the dog, I might have my my aperture open more or less, and then there's like a lack of consistency in how the backdrop comes out because of that.
Are you using strobes?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. But yeah, that's all I've got. I think we're just now over time. Have you got any questions? Let me go back to the little slideshow. next, well, I am running another webinar next. It's more business focused. So if you're interested, Rachel, come along to that.
When's that? End of March?
Yes, 31st.
I can do a 7:30 on a Monday. Yeah.
Yeah. Either scan the QR code or go to My Sony Scene, and that should be up on there already.
Mhm.
And you can scan this QR code to sign up to my mailing list as well.
Let me grab that.
I'll be sending out. Yeah, I'm trying to create some kind of workshop and course, and also some possibility of a membership accountability group. That we have a group kind of accountability where we'll meet every fortnight or month to talk about what we need to do. Yes, if you need some help, some ideas, celebrate your wins and things like that. But yeah, that means you'll get the first news and any special offers. Other than that, you can also visit my website, energyphotography.com/4-photographers. You can actually sign up for mentoring coaching on there as well. So I can do just a one-off 1 hour mentoring, or you can buy in hourly, like 3 hour or 6 hour packages as well. And we can actually work on specific things that you want to work on, whether it's a business, editing, photography, whatever you want to work on, we can focus on that specifically. Yeah. But other than that, that's it. Any other questions? No?
I've written everything down. Thank you so much.
Awesome. I hope that's been helpful.
Yeah, I trained such a long time ago, and I think there's been like a lot of advancements in the technology that I haven't been aware of. So kind of just like watch how other people do editing and kind of find out what I've not kept up to date with since uni. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that's it for today. I think you're following me now on Instagram, so yeah, I'll try to be posting stuff in there too about workshops and other things for photographers, both of the stuff that I'm doing for my clients, for pet photography clients, as well as pet photographers. Now I'm trying to sort of provide info for both. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'll send through the recording in the next hours or in the next couple of days.
Okay.
So you can rewatch it. Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.